Some coffee's fast, but not fresh. Some coffee's fresh, but only after a long wait. Speedway Coffee is made fresh at the push of a button, hot or iced, so you can have fresh coffee your way, right away. Get 2 times the points when you buy any size hot or iced coffee drink with Speedy Rewards.
Shop on eBay this holiday season to get more for your dough on stand mixers. Or get more for your buck on this season's hottest tech and gaming gear. And on eBay, you can even get more.
Oh, wow.
I know, so festive.
Pizzazz for your party. Make your holiday party one to remember. Get more because you save more on premium brands with eBay's exclusive deals. Get more when you get it on eBay.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Hello, and welcome to the Hoop Ball DFS Today podcast. We are back. It's Haaris and I'm Mike Apatra. We're here to break down this wonderful, fantastic Thursday slate. November 4th, 5 games on the card. Haaris, we talked about it before we got on the show. You're having yourself a pretty nice night over there, aren't you?
I cannot complain about the night whatsoever. As I was telling you earlier, Raptors 4-0 on the road now. Can't be beat. Bet365 is great on it too. They keep giving underdog odds to them, and I just keep cashing them in. So enjoying that side, and DFS has been pretty good too. Shout out to a number of people that messaged me about the Gary Trent pick from the last one. They seem to really enjoy getting that one and putting it in. So I'm glad it worked out for everyone and that it was a good night.
It's nice when you can cash in on your Raptors, and then our listeners can as well. So
there you go.
You are our in-house Raptors expert, so whenever there's a go-to question about the Raptors, make sure you guys jump on it, hit up Haaris. There's not too many people I could talk about or talk to that know as much about the Raptors as you, man. And it goes to your credit, Mr. Season Ticket Holder. You're watching them every single night in person. That helps. It helps. Believe it or not, guys, if you watch the games, you will know more. But having a pretty nice DFS night myself right now. Did pretty well last night, so hoping to make it 2 straight. Don't know if this doesn't look like it's going to be a night I'm going to ship it home. But anytime you finish, and use these GPPs more than doubling your money, you got to feel pretty confident. Even if you break even in GPPs, that's a win in my book, because we're really playing to get that top 1%. So as long as you're not losing, that's a win. We'll take it. But we got an interesting slate, and I think interesting is an easy way to put it. Only 5 games on the card, but boy, is there some value. So before we jump into anything, though, quick shout out to our presenting sponsors over at Manscaped, guys. Head over to manscaped.com. Use that promo code HoopBall20. Get 20% off plus free shipping on your entire purchase. All of your male grooming needs, the number one male grooming needs business in the business, I guess you could say. For everything from conditioners, toners, travel kits, the ear, hair, and nose trimmer, lawnmower, which they keep upgrading. And that's the great thing about Manscaped, guys. They don't get stagnant on their products. If there's a way they could tune it, make it better, they will. And then great part about it, maybe you have the old lawnmower, there we go, and you want to try the new one. Use that promo code, 20% off of it plus free shipping. We have holidays right around the corner. Great gifts for everybody. So head over there, hoopball20 for the 20% off plus free shipping. So we'll dive right into things. Like I said, this is going to be a very interesting slate. There's a lot of ways you can go wrong with it, a lot of ways you can go right. But we'll start off at the top. Philly traveling to Detroit, taking on the Pistons. Second night of a back-to-back for Philadelphia. We do not have their injury report yet, but for the most part, we know what's going on over there. For the Pistons, Saban Lee has been ruled out, and it's G League assignment. Him, Isaiah Livers, Chris Smith, all in the G League right now. So nothing to worry about there. For the most part, they will pretty much be good to go. No game total, no spread just yet. Probably waiting just because of Philly, but like I said, most of that information we have readily available. For Philadelphia, we know that Tobias Harris is out. We know Ben Simmons is out. Danny Green said he's going to miss the next few games. So those are the 3 main injuries that we need to be concerned with. I'll pass it over to you, Harris. I'll let you start with the Philadelphia Sixers. What are you looking at? There's a lot to like here. We saw a lot of the value in the minutes kind of get this distributed tonight, but who are you playing?
Yeah, and obviously them being on a back-to-back makes that a little bit more interesting because then Joel Embiid situation kind of comes into it, whether he's in any way limited, whether he's playing at all. I mean, I doubt that he gets rested just because they're out Tobias Harris. Obviously, Ben Simmons continues to be mental healthing it up, so no idea when he gets back. But you're right, you're getting a lot of distribution on the minutes, and there's a lot of guys that have come in and gotten pretty decent usage. And if you're looking from a value perspective, George Niang, sitting at 4,400, has gotten thrust into the starting lineup, getting 31 minutes in this last game against Portland. 7 of 16 from there, dropped 21. He's clearly going to be a guy that they're looking to as far as offense is concerned. Obviously, Tobias Harris had been their primary guy to be able to shoot from the perimeter, but they're going to need a little bit of help there. Seth Curry's going to need a little bit of help. But speaking of Seth Curry, at 5,900, he's probably a guy who's going to be a big focal point of the offense now. You've seen he's been running a lot more from a point guard perspective, even though he's listed as a shooting guard. He's been racking up a decent amount of dimes in that point as well. So, a guy I'm really looking at. I like that 5,900 price tag for the upside he has. I do think this Philly-Detroit game, just because, Philly's coming on a back-to-back, going to be a little bit tired, and it's not like Detroit is really going to run you out of the building. So I expect the game to be actually relatively tight going all the way through, especially because Detroit's playing at home. So, I'm happy to have a little bit more exposure. And then finally, my favorite value play, which I'm going to speak about a little bit later, is Matisse Thybulle. Just plain and simple, it's always been a situation of him getting minutes and him also getting a little bit more usage. His minutes have now kind of gotten pretty secure in that 30-minute area, which is great. But more so than that, he's getting more shots to kind of complement the fact that he's always going to get you steals and blocks. So at his bottom barrel price of 3,600, I think there's a lot of upside over there, and I'm going to be looking at him a lot to be able to fill out some of the studs that I'm hoping to fit in otherwise.
Well said. Yeah, Thybulle, especially great play on FanDuel, where they reward a little bit more points for those steals and blocks. But 3,600, fantastic price tag. Niang actually, I believe, came off the bench, which doesn't really matter. We'd actually rather see that, in my opinion. He's getting that bench usage, still played 31 minutes. They continue to start Korkmaz, and then they started Thybulle in place of Danny Green. But there's so many options on this team that we can play, so much value. Thybulle, Niang, both fantastic value plays, in my opinion. That's going to be the theme of the night, is the value. I really do like Joel Embiid, even though it's a back-to-back 10-5. It's one of my favorite plays on the slate. He should absolutely destroy in this matchup. I mean, Stewart hasn't really been able to do much of anything this season. Really struggling, showing that expanded role, and is not losing it anytime soon. But I could easily see him getting into foul trouble pretty early on this. And then if Olynyk comes in, he'll get bullied. They're going to need Joel Embiid out there. The Olynyk matchup, stretching him out, pulling him away from the paint. That's not going to take Embiid off the court. They're going to need him for every single minute in this one. He didn't put up a great fantasy game tonight, but it's bound to happen. 10-5. We're going to have plenty of money to spend. Normally, I would be shying away from that price tag a little bit, but the only question that's going to come into is, how many centers are you going to play? There's going to be a lot of value at the center position, and that's where I think Embiid might come in as a little contrarian, where if you choose to, only spend down at one center spot, you might get a lower ownership on Embiid as well. So I have interest in Embiid. I have interest in Korkmaz. Not as much as Niang and Thybulle, but all four of those guys very, very much in play for me. On to the Detroit side, and Seth Curry too. I'm not going to say he's a bad play. The way my builds have been looking so far, I just wasn't falling in that price range too much. But on Detroit, Cade Cunningham, man, 4K. It's a tempting price tag. It's another value option. One would imagine that this shot is going to fall eventually. He had no real restrictions in that last one. Even during the blowout, he played 29 minutes, took 14 shots, made 2, 0 of 9 from behind the line. I'm not afraid to go back to the well here. And there's one thing I love is when people do get scared, they check those box scores, and they're going to say, well, there's value all over the place. Why would I take a chance on him? You take a chance because he's the first overall pick and he's taking 14 shots. It's that simple to me. Even if he shoots these at a 30 to 35% clip, which is still not great, he's going to return the value on it. He's a tall point guard, very lengthy point guard. The steals, the rebounds, those things are going to come to this kid. It's only been 2 games. So I don't mind going back to the well with Cade Cunningham, looking at him as a value play. Outside of him, I think this is a pretty good matchup for Saddiq Bey. He struggled with a shot in that last one as well, 2 of 13. But I can see him having one of those 7 to 8 rebound games, getting close to 20 actual points. Lands in that 5,900 range, so it gets a little tough for me there. And then you could always love a little revenge if you want to look at the revenge with Jeremy Grant. But 68, I think I'd rather just try to find the extra couple bucks to get up to Horford Just model of sense and security with Horford. But Grant always has that upside. Showed it in that last one, put up 30 DK points in only 24 minutes. Like we said, we expect this one to stay close. And the last 2 games where he's played 35 minutes, he's put up at least 36 DK points. So I'll pass it over to you, Detroit, if there's anything else you want to add.
Shop on eBay this holiday season to get more for your dough on stand mixers, or get more for your buck on this season's hottest tech and gaming gear. And on eBay, you can even get more.
Oh, wow.
I know, so festive.
Pizzazz for your party. Make your holiday party one to remember. Get more because you save more on premium brands with eBay's exclusive deals. Get more when you get it on eBay.
I think you've hit most of the main guys. On a side note, I do also like a little bit of Killian Hayes just because he is, as much as Cade Cunningham is kind of shooting a lot more, you're seeing Killian Hayes get that opportunity to be able to get some of those dimes. And a lot of those missed shots that Cade had last game were coming off of Killian's passes. So if you hope that Cade will finally get some of his shot going, not be 0-14 from the three-point line for the season, then you may see that Killian at 3,900 likely hits his value at a good clip as well.
All right. We'll move on to the next game. I just never play Killian, to be honest. I don't knock it. That's the one thing. I won't knock the play whatsoever. It's because he is getting the minutes. He'll probably play better alongside Cade. You're right. The assist will definitely go up. I just, with all the value available, I just don't know where his ceiling's at right now. I feel like his ceiling's maybe 34, 33, which if you got that, you'd be happy. But we've yet to even see that ceiling game quite this season. And we have some plays that we're about to talk about right now who, could easily crush that, get you 50. So we have Atlanta defending their home court against Utah. No injury report for the Hawks yet. Back-to-back for them as well. For the Jazz, though, buckle up. A lot of people out. Donovan Mitchell's questionable. We saw him hobbled, injured his ankle in that last game. I would be shocked if he plays. We know that Rudy Gay's sitting out dealing with the right heel injury. So those are the 2 big ones. Royce O'Neal, also questionable. If he sits, it's going to open up some power forward minutes, probably Joe Ingles. And like I said, if Mitchell sits, we'll probably be looking at guys like Clarkson. Conley gets a nice little usage boost. So there's a lot to like here. I mean, the elephant in the room is going to be Hassan Whiteside at 4,100. We're playing him. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Even in 15 to 20 minutes, this dude will pay off that price tag more often than not. But if you're telling me he could get 25 to 30, yeah, I'm going to have some interest in him. Just his sheer block upside, his sheer rebounding upside. We don't need him to get any more than 10 to 12 points, and that price tag will get paid off. He'll be very, very chalky. He'll probably be at 90%, but this is one of those situations where it was like when Gafford was sitting and Montrezl Harrell was starting. You just don't fade some good chalk. There's other chalk on this slate that we could fade, but this is, in my opinion, this isn't one of them. Now, these other spots, where am I going to be looking? You could pretty much spread your ownership out pretty evenly. I like Joe Ingles at 46. I'll like him even more if there's no Royce O'Neal. He should be easily be able to pay off that price tag at 4,600, knowing that he's going to get a trickle down of usage. It's a different story when Donovan Mitchell sits as opposed to Conley. There's playing time, and then there's about 18 shots that are going to go around. So Clarkson, if he starts, comes off the bench, doesn't matter to me. I like him in both situations. I actually prefer him off the bench just so he gets that second unit bench usage. He's a guy that I could easily see finishing this game with close to 20 shot attempts. So I have interest in all 3 of those guys. I'll be mixing and matching, and I don't mind even taking a stab at Conley at 63. We saw him put up 30 points in that last game, took 19 shot attempts. He's not afraid to carry a little bit of the load. I just don't see his minutes playing much more than 32 because we know they're trying to manage it. Something that they're very concerned about. The last thing they want to do is aggravate something like a hamstring injury for Mike Conley in a game where they're already missing 2 starters. So that's kind of my take on it. If Mitchell plays, that obviously puts a little bit of a damper on some of these guys. I don't think I'd pay the 94 for Mitchell if he plays on a hobbled ankle, but I'll still have interest in guys like Ingles and Whiteside regardless.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much to add over there. Just from the Whiteside perspective, you may see him split a couple of minutes with Eric Paschall as well, just at that complete bottom barrel 3,000. So if we get to a point where you need a guy to be able to fit in, I do expect him to actually be able to get to close to 20 to 25 minutes in this one. So should be pretty good for his $3,000 as well.
Tell me we have more value. I didn't. No, absolutely right. And depending on if Royce O'Neal sits, They might start him just to keep either Clarkson or Ingles off the bench, just to keep one of those ball handlers off the bench. That could be an option for them. So keep an eye on it. It's a pretty early game. We'll probably have a decent idea of what the starting lineup looks like. But over to the Hawks. Everybody pretty much good to go. John Collins was questionable coming into tonight's game. Ended up played pretty well. But who are you looking at in this matchup?
Yeah, see, the one problem I always have in Utah matchups is just always that pesky defense that gets people a little bit lower. Because I was going to say, hey, Trey's getting back to normal, had a great night as well coming out tonight. If with me being a little bit more worried about Embiid as an example for his top price tag, Trey may be a spot where I may be interested in going. But again, it's just one of those where it'll probably end up being a contrarian pick just because Utah's defense is always stifling. John Collins continues to be the guy as far as Atlanta's been concerned. You've been talking about it as well. It's just a rock solid floor. The upside is always there. If he has a really great night, he can always give you that 40 going closer to 50. And then beyond that, there's just always these guys that have otherwise tempting price tags. I mean, there's no reason in my mind why Herter shouldn't break 3,900, but he hasn't been involved enough in the offense to be able to do that consistently. Deandre Hunter had an amazing night tonight, dropped 26. Was waiting for that all season, but going to chase that might be a problem as well. So it's just one of those where the only guy I really trust is John Collins, and I may have some contrarian and Trae Young, but these value plays, as you said, there's better value plays out there, so I'll probably stay away from the Atlanta ones.
Yeah, Atlanta's going to be you said it perfectly, very contrarian on the slate. I don't mind looking at John Collins. You should be able to have a plus matchup at that power forward position, not having to worry about Rudy Gobert. Yeah, Hassan Whiteside can get you 5 blocks, but he's not good at defense. There's a big difference between Hassan Whiteside blocks and Rudy Gobert blocks. Rudy's actually good at defense. Whiteside, not so much. He's going to allow a ton of points just because he goes for those weak side blocks and gets them. Doesn't mean that he's protecting the paint. There's a big difference. So I don't mind taking a look at John Collins. I was very high in Clint Capella on tonight's matchup. Played extremely well against that Brooklyn interior, but it's a back-to-back. So I get a little hesitant with him on back-to-backs just because he's somebody that they've been trying to limit more and more through as the season went on. So they need him for playoffs. Let's be real. So I think it's probably just John Collins for me as well. I'm not chasing that Hunter game. Shot 10 of 11, 6 of 6 from deep. So that's something that is, very normal for him. But wouldn't mind taking a stab at Huerter as a contrarian value play. They're trying to people are talking about him being traded. I don't know. He just signed that extension, so it's kind of tough to trade him after he signed an extension. So we'll have to see. But if that's the case, we could see him get some extra run in this one. But on to the next one. 7:30 Eastern Standard Time game. Boston Celtics traveling to Miami, taking on the Heat. Celtics, second half of back-to-back for them as well. Heat, for the injury report, Victor Oladipo, Max Struss, Marcus Garrett, all ruled out. KZ Okpala is questionable. So this is going to probably be the best actual basketball game of the night. Very exciting game. I'll pass it over to you. I'll let you talk about the Celtics. I'll grab the Heat, and we'll bring it all together and bring it home.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right about it being the most exciting game, even though the spread kind of seems to indicate it may not be as much. I mean, they got the Heat as 8-point favorites on here, a 215 game, but I expect it'll be closer than that. I mean, Boston has been going through its own issues, players only meeting, all of that, but in between all of that, Al Horford continues to be that absolute rock that you can rely on night in, night out. As long as he's playing, he is never letting you down on the price tag. And until he gets to somewhere close to that 8,000 one, I'm willing to lock him in every night. So sitting in at 7,400 today, absolutely lock in there. And then after that, those 5,000 guys that are sitting there for Boston continue to be intriguing just because they do have that upside on them. And if, Marcus Smart can get Tatum and Brown to pass a little bit more, as he's hoping to, we get a few more shots out of him at 5,500. He's always been a guy that I always have interest in just because if he has a big night from 3, because he's going to shoot anywhere between 5 to 6 every single night, the other stats will usually make it up. So he's a pretty decent play as far as point guard side is concerned. But really, Al Horford locks in, and everyone else is kind of a bit contrarian.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty much a must play almost at this Horford standpoint. I mean, if there's a matchup where you might be a little concerned, it's against this Heat defense, which has been nothing short of absolutely fantastic this season. So I could see that, but I mean, he's been their best defender. We see him probably come off the court last. Some of these starters come off the court, they try to keep him on as often as possible. So I don't have any issues, going straight back to the well with Al Horford. Tatum, yeah, he becomes contrarian just because of the guy on the other side of the ball, which, slightly like him a little bit more. But he played well against the Heat actually last year. So, looking at that matchup for what it is, I think they played about 3 games, and he was averaging close to 29, 6, and 5. So it's not like it's Jimmy Butler shuts him down or anything like that. So I'm not going to cross him out of my player pool. I think he makes for that great GPP type play. Not playing Jaylen Brown with a $900 difference separating the two. I just prefer to play Tatum, especially with a back-to-back. We know that we heard the Celtics come out and say that they wanted to kind of handle Brown a little, not with kid gloves, but he's been dealing with knee tendonitis for the better half of like a year now, and might not be the matchup you want to target him in general anyway. So those are the 2 main targets I'm looking at. And I know you said Smart. I kind of like Schroeder. Schroeder's just been playing fantastic off the bench for him. If anybody ever gets into foul trouble, he gets that little boost knowing that he's going to be the first guy that comes in, gets the bench usage, shot attempts. It's going to be like a Schroeder versus Tyler Hero bench matchup. So those are the 3 guys I'm really targeting. And on the Miami side of the ball, Jimmy Butler, 9,600. I don't know how you can not play this guy at this point. He just continues to put on big games. Yes, the price tag went up. It's $500. But he just scored 47 points, DK points, on 11 shot attempts. The steals are coming at an absurd rate. He's getting to the foul line, which is super important. Over the last 2 games, 28 foul shots. And he knocked down 25 of them. So absolutely love Jimmy Butler. We're going to have money to spend on this slate, and he's probably going to be one of the guys I make sure I get a fair amount of ownership in. I can see him being one of my higher owned spend-ups. Bam Adebayo coming up at 8,100. Has been playing great over the past few games. He's a contrarian play, if you ask me. We already talked about 2 centers on this slate who are fantastic. We'll get to another one in the next game who could have a load of value as well. So if you're trying to be contrarian, maybe you're not playing Butler. You can play these guys alongside of each other. There's no issues there. But if you want to get exposure to this game and you don't want to spend up on Butler, I can see Bam being an absolutely fantastic play. You just, again, you have to sacrifice one of those center spots for him. Especially if you're talking about FanDuel. Gets even tougher there. Outside of those 2 guys, I mean, this Tyler Hero show, man, what do you make of it? This kid's making statements, and the price tag's not really budging. It's been, that $6,600, $6,700 range for the past 5 games now. And he continues to pretty much pay that off. I think he paid it off 4 out of the past 5 games. Is this another game we could look at him in?
Yeah, Tyler Hero is just one of those situations where his entire game is around how efficient his shooting night goes. And to his credit, this entire season, he's pretty much been doing that. I mean, 55% of the last one. He had a slightly off one prior to that, but he was able to make it up just because he hit a couple more threes in that one. But yeah, I mean, Tyler Hero is absolutely locked in as their gunner. And the fact that he's handling the ball so much more to get you those 4 or 5 assists every game. I mean, until he gets into that like mid 7,000 range, he's pretty much a lock for me too, just considering how the Heat are using him. And you mentioned Bam, and I like Bam, especially more in the last couple of games, because it's where Kyle Lowry has finally been coming back into normal. Now, I'm not saying take Kyle Lowry at 7,700, but the idea being that with him being back and more involved with the offense, his assist rate and all of that is up. Most of those assists you're going to start to see are going to come to Bam when they start running that pick and roll, that pick and pop. Kyle Lowry made his money with that in Toronto all the way through, getting every big man to have career years because of that situation. So, as long as Kyle keeps playing as it is, Bam is going to be a great play night in, night out. He's going to start to get more efficient looks. And at the 8,100, I absolutely love that price tag in this kind of a matchup. And yeah, that's where I'm going. Jimmy Butler, I think it's funny because you talk about taking Morant on the chin. I feel like I take Jimmy Butler on the chin every single night, where it's like, I have him in lots of season-long leagues. I absolutely love his game, but his entire thing to me has always been, all right, he's not going to shoot enough threes. Is that going to mess me up from the fact that he's like a 9,000 guy, and then he kicks me in the nuts every time? So I'm sure it'll happen again. Jimmy continues to be awesome. He's going to be a great play, but I'm always fading him. It's just the thing I do.
Yeah, you're always going to have those couple guys that you're ready to take one off the chin. And as long as you have a good pivot, it's not going to hurt you. And I'll tell you what, I didn't take one off the chin from Morant tonight. That was a good feeling. He came out and he played well. He played very well actual basketball. They won by 2 in that game. Had that pretty sick 360 layup right at the halftime, but did not come near to his salary. Did not come even close to paying it off. Finished with 18, 6, and 6 with 3 steals. So You're gonna be right on a lot of those, and I think for the most part, we were looking at Morant just being a little bit too elevated at a price tag in general, despite how good of a talent he is. He's a future face of the NBA. He's gonna be fantastic for the next 10 years. But Jimmy, he's a guy that we know is should be priced around that 9K mark and has been priced around that 9K mark for the past few seasons. And yeah, so what? We're paying an extra $600 for him on this slate when we have too much value as it is. I'm okay with doing that, but you're always going to have a few of those guys. I got probably 10 of them in my arsenal where, listen, if they beat me, they beat me. I'll live to see another day. And you don't usually lose your slate because of one guy going off that you don't have. You lose your slate because you played somebody that's not going to do well. So I try not to focus as much on which guys I'm not having in my lineup as opposed to which guys I do have in my lineup. That's always one of the outlooks I try to take. But I'm right there with you. And Bam has been just stifling centers on defense. He's like allowing – I saw it on Twitter the other day, some absurd stat where opposing centers are shooting like 20-something%, or maybe it was even 20% against them this season, which is just absolutely insane. So I wouldn't even think about Robert Williams. But now that I said that, it'll probably be the Robert Williams game. But on to the next game, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time game. So a 2.5-hour gap in between these two games. So make sure that, you got these last two games slotted toward the bottom of your lineup. That way, if you need a late swap, you could. Houston Rockets traveling to Phoenix, taking on the Suns. For Houston, Daniel House Jr., Garrison Matthews, both ruled out. Daniel Tice is questionable with that toe soreness. Saw him sit out that last game. For the Suns, DeAndre Ayton is questionable along with Cameron Payne. Darius Saric remains out. Probably won't be back at all this season, but as far as a game total and a spread, we don't have it. Probably because they ate news. That's what I imagine. But I'll pass it over to you, Houston Rockets. What do you like?
And Houston, again, is one of those guys, one of those teams where there's all these guys that are at price tags, which I find incredibly intriguing. And then they always seem to screw me over. But on the other hand, just from watching a lot of Houston games, I enjoy the way they play. Kevin Porter Jr. has just been playing a lot better over the last. He's had 2 games back-to-back against the LA Lakers where, even though his shooting percentage continues to be rough, the fact of the matter is his minutes keep coming into that high 30s, sometimes even low 40s situation. So he's going to be getting all the time, all the usage, and how active he is on the defensive end usually gets him 2 or 3 steals at that time as well. So at 6,400 in a game where obviously, Chris Paul is Chris Paul, but you find that they switch a lot between their 2 guards, between Porter and Jalen Green, to kind of take over the point guard situation. So I could see him getting a little bit more time on Devin Booker instead, who is a much less accomplished defender versus Chris Paul. So at 6,400, I have a good amount of hope that Kevin Porter will have a good night. So I've got him on there. And I've continued to like what Jishan Tate does for the Houston Rockets. I mean, he's obviously had a little bit of a rough season, but it's been more that his shot just hasn't been going. And as a result, it's kind of taken away the rest of his confidence. But he came back in that Lakers game looking much more engaged. He's almost like a Pat Beverly, who's a more offensively inclined guy. So if he can get that kind of engagement, he's often going to be a guy that kind of fills a stat sheet across the board. So again, in a Phoenix matchup, which is likely going to be pretty close in comparison to the other matchups that are there, and probably a pretty high-paced one as well. I do like Jishan Tate, especially the fact that he's a small forward, power forward situation at 5,200. So those are the 2 main guys I'm looking at, and Sengun is always a thing at 4,100. So if you're trying to be a contrarian to Whiteside, which you probably won't, you're going to take him in every one. But at 4,100, Sengun is always one of those guys that has the capability to do a lot more. He's just kind of been giving you that ceiling of about 26, but never know, you could do more than that as well.
I think his ceiling is much higher than 26 too.
Yeah.
If he's playing 25 to 30 minutes, his ceiling could be 40, 45. This dude has such an arsenal. I think last game might have been one of his lowest steal games that he's had so far in the season, with only 1. And that's the caveat when a guy like that gets moved into the starting lineup. He probably won't have as many shot attempts and things like that as though when he's coming off the bench. But keep in mind what team they were going against. There's this guy named Anthony Davis that can sometimes put a damper on a lot of the things that you're expecting to go well for opposing big men. So I don't mind looking at Sengun. That's the issue that I run into on this slate, is how many centers I do like and how much center value we do have.
Yep.
The caveat, this game, like I said, it's not starting till 10 p.m., so maybe we don't have that Tice news. So there's a great pivot just in case, though, we can get to in that next game. But I'm with you. I think Sengun and Kevin Porter Jr. are probably the only two people I'm really looking at. I haven't been playing too much Christian Wood at that price tag, though he paid it off in that last one. Shout out DJ Sam at Caps, writing him up in the article. But I just don't see myself going to too much of him at 8,800, especially because he plays center. On to the Phoenix side of things. DeAndre Ayton, big question mark right now. Signed out that last game. Saw JaVale McGee draw that start. JaVale's only 3,900. Only played 19 minutes, but JaVale can pay off a price tag at 19 pretty quickly. 24 DK points in that one with only 5 rebounds. I expect the rebound numbers to tip up, especially against this team that likes to play quick. More shot attempts will come. And this could be a game where we just see JaVale McGee absolutely dominating in transition. It's one thing that I haven't really seen from Sengun so far is, I guess, a hole in his game is that transition defense. So I can see rim running JaVale taking advantage of that. Another guy we need to talk about would be Frank Kaminsky. Came out and dominated 3,500, put up 35 DK points. So both these guys are very, very much in play of 8 and 6. I'll have shares of both of them. Probably go with Kaminsky a little bit more just based upon that it is a power forward's eligibility as well. So maybe I could end up playing guys like Embiid and Whiteside and then use Kaminsky as some more value if I need to. Or maybe it's Embiid, Sengun. Don't do that. Play Whiteside. Whatever you want to do. You can mix and match there and still get some shares and some ownership into this advantage at the position. So I don't mind taking those two guys. Outside of them, Chris Paul and Booker feel a little bit too expensive for me. If I had to play one of them, it would probably be Devin Booker. We know that the shot attempts are always going to be there for him. Has taken at least 20 shot attempts over the past 3 games. Just hasn't been shooting the ball well over the past 2. And this is a matchup where I can easily see him taking advantage of the rookie. So I think those are the 3 guys I'm looking at most. I wouldn't knock you if you wanted to take stabs at these mid-tier guys as well. I just think it's more of a stars and scrub type night for me.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And watching that last game for the Phoenix Suns, they ran a lot of pick and roll between JaVale McGee and Chris Paul, and tons of those Chris Paul assists came from just rim runs that JaVale McGee was getting, and it was key to their comeback. So I definitely see Monty Williams going a lot more to that JaVale McGee and then moving it a little bit away to Frank Kaminsky. The other wrinkle that comes into all of this is that when DeAndre Ayton is out, a lot of the primary rebounds go to a guy like Jay Crowder, who had a 35.5 night on the other game, even though he didn't shoot all that much. Ended up 13 points, 5 of 7, pretty normal. But it was the 8 rebounds, 5 assists that kind of became a lot more interesting. You saw him become much more involved with the offense. And again, from a pivot perspective, a power forward guy who you may want to look into. I think Jay Crowder at 5,000 makes a lot of sense for if DeAndre Ayton's out. He's going to become a primary rebounder and a secondary playmaker when Chris Paul is sitting.
All right, final game of the night, 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. OKC Thunder traveling to LA, taking on the Lakers. For the Lakers, Trevor Ariza, Sekou, who's in the G League, Talen Horton-Tucker, all ruled out. Dwight Howard is questionable. Wayne Ellington, Anthony Davis, both probable. If you look, you'll see LeBron has that questionable tag, but he's not being listed on the injury report, so we can assume he is going to play. Actually, no, I didn't scroll down. He is listed, questionable still. I assume he's still going to play, though. He's played through that ankle soreness. Kendrick Nunn out as well with that bone bruise for OKC. Lou Gents Dort is questionable, so is Gabriel Deck. And that is all we need to be concerned with. So we'll have to monitor the LeBron news. But like I said, I'm assuming he's going to play. 217.5 game total. Lakers being favored by a whopping 13 points. So this is going to be a very contrarian game for me. This game stayed close enough in the last one for a lot of these guys to get the value. And anytime people see a 13-point spread, they're going to be scared off. So do I feel comfortable about a lot of these guys in my cash games? Probably not. But I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander becomes one of the best contrarian point guard plays. We've already talked about how much value at center, not as much at guard. We're going to have plenty of money to spend up at this guard position, and if you wanted to be contrarian with it, I think this is the way you do it, and it's get some Shai exposure, because if this game stays close, it's a near lock for 40-plus for him. Outside of him, only other guy I have any interest in, Giddey's price tag getting a little up there at 5,800, not the matchup I generally want to target him in. So I don't think I'll go there necessarily, and I haven't been finding myself at that price range so much. But I like Darius Bazley a little bit too. He had a great game against the Lakers last time they played, put up 40 DK points at 4,600. He's back in play for me, staying away from the center spot. If Dort happens to sit, Kenrich Williams might draw the start, 3,200. We'll have to keep an eye on that. I think he'd be another fantastic value play that we could look at. I mean, we've seen him do so many different things at that small forward spot where who really knows? Because we could see Giddey will probably slide down to the 2. I mean, these guys are all playing like positionless basketball as it is. So it would probably either be Kenrich. I would love it for it to be Paku, but I would imagine it's going to be Kenrich that would draw the start if Dort sits. But what are you looking at for OKC?
Yeah, and obviously Gilgeous-Alexander continues to be, a guy you can rely on as long as the game stays close. But I'm a lot higher on Josh Giddey than you are in this. And the fact that he has that small forward eligibility makes him even more interesting to me. And more so than that, it's clearly a development season for him. But the best thing I like about Josh Giddey is just how much he loves to crash the boards alongside, going for those blocks as well. Like any guard who is as big as he is and as willing as he is to be able to get himself involved on that defensive side without fouling, which has been the best thing, that absolutely keeps him in play for me. He had a great game against the Clippers, and the way that he's playing, the way that he's getting his minutes consistently, I don't see him dropping anything less than that floor of 27.5 that he's had in the last 5 games with highs that are sitting at 47, 38, 38. So at 5,800, even though I guess technically you can say for a rookie it seems kind of pricey, I think this is a great spot to be able to take him, and that small forward spot makes it so that, hey, if I can get a point guard guy in there, I'm very happy to do so.
Now, do you think the LeBron factor has anything to do with this game, though, with Giddey? Because LeBron didn't, I don't believe, maybe I'm wrong, let me double check this. I don't think he played in that game. So that's probably why we're seeing a higher spread or game total and spread than we did in the last one. Not saying, LeBron is always focused on defense. Sometimes it's actually the contrarian where he's okay with letting you get a bucket here and there. But I don't think he's going to want to get punked by a rookie either. So, listen, I like Giddey. I love him as a talent. I think he was one of my favorite players from this rookie class coming into this season. Somebody that I didn't expect him to be this good, this quick. I thought there was going to be a little bit more development time. But once we saw him kind of playing in preseason and things of that nature, he just looks like he's very focused, NBA ready, young guy, but he has a grown man's body. But 5,800, it's a way to get exposure to this game if you don't want to spend up. If you're a little worried about that spread, we know he only needs about 27, 28 minutes to pay off his price tag. So I'm not going to cross him out. Just not a guy that I'm overly, focused on or hyper focused on with so much value and so many studs that, like I said, I'm more or less going with the stars and scrubs approach. But if I land on that 58, 6K mark, I definitely won't shy away from him. Oh, sorry. Were you say something?
Oh, no, I was going to say, we seem to have the assumption that LeBron is going to be playing here, but I'm actually a little bit more, skeptical of that because it just seems like of all the games to potentially take a rest and ensure that he keeps himself going, is this one? And I feel like it might be, but obviously the advantage we have over here is it's a 10:30 game, so we'll keep an eye on the news, but I wouldn't be surprised if he sits. Just saying. No,
you might be right. I'm looking at that last game against Houston, and they barely won that. So, at the same point, I'm like, do they want to take the chance? But maybe in that 13-point spread, sometimes Vegas knows a little bit more than us, where that kind of has me thinking as well, where it's like, all right, it would probably be closer to 10 if he was sitting. But it might be the 10-point because he's sitting, and then also because the Lakers are home, they give you the extra 3 usually because of the home team, somewhere around that range. So who knows? We'll have to keep an eye on it, but you're absolutely right. Giddey would be a much better play if LeBron does sit, just because A, the game stays closer, B, less defense he needs to worry about. But on the Lakers side of the ball, I guess we're going to have to wait on the LeBron news. But we could look at this from both angles. You know what I mean? Like if LeBron plays, out of these 3 guys, all priced over 10K now, which at one point they were all priced much, much lower than that. I think I would prefer Anthony Davis out of the bunch. I don't say it confidently. I like Jimmy Butler point per dollar better than a lot of these guys because I know that he's going to be top dog of his team, and he's several $100s cheaper than all of them. Joel Embiid, I think I like more than all these guys, so it gets into a little bit of a tug of war battle at him as well. But these guys can play different positions, and we already talked about all that center. So for me, it's probably going to come down to a lot of construction standpoint and a lot of how my builds are. If I'm playing Shea, I might run it back with one of these guys. Now, if LeBron sits, Westbrook becomes a must play. Davis becomes an absolutely fantastic play, and you'd be able to play both those guys if you wanted to. You'll have the value to play both those guys if you wanted to. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. It would probably be Anthony Davis if I had to pick out of the bunch. If LeBron sits, though, I think both these guys are very much in play. And I'm not really mentioning LeBron James. Sometimes that comes back and bite me, but I probably, out of a lot of the DFS guys out there, I probably play the least amount of LeBron James. I do not play a lot of LeBron. And he's one of those guys where I guess I could say it. I'm okay to take it off the chin if he has his big game. And I almost anticipate it most nights. But, if he gets you 45 or 44 here, you're not going to be too happy with it, especially with all this value out there and the guys you could have spent up on and everything else. So outside of them, though, not a whole lot of interest to go around. It's just not a lot of usage. We know that when these three guys are healthy, the most shot attempts somebody's probably taken outside of maybe Carmelo Anthony because he's just boys and just doesn't care. He'll get the double-digit ones. But I'm not paying 53 for him with all the value available. Maybe Kent Bazemore if you're trying to be contrarian for the steals, but we have better value available. So I don't think we need to go there. I'm not interested in the Lakers as a whole unless we're here early on in the day, last game of the night. So does LeBron sit?
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was. So if LeBron sat, then I had Westbrook shares, but by and large, I just didn't care to have any of the Lakers in this. And I'm right there with you as far as LeBron's concerned, because when I think about a guy that's in the 10K, 11K range, I want to think about a guy who can drop 70. And LeBron at this point, just in this point in his career and this point of how he's playing, if he's dropped 50, he's probably already won the game because he's done all the other little things to get you there. So he's likely not going to have the kind of game that really makes it like an eye-popping 10,000 slam dunk pick. So I also play very little LeBron. On the other hand, I play a lot of Harden, and that usually seems to bite me in the butt, but the guy's your guy.
It did that to me tonight. I had him in, I think we were talking about before we got on. I had him in a couple of lineups. I probably played 5 or 10 different lineups tonight. I didn't max out anything, but I had him in like 1 or 2 single entries. I always make a contrarian single entry lineup. If I do 8 different contests for single entry, I'll have like 1 or 2 that's a contrarian. He was in my contrarian, and the contrarian was doing better than the other. They're both doing fairly well, but I look back on it and I'm like, why did I play him? I didn't like him in the begin with. And I talked about it on the podcast. He wasn't one of my favorite spend up guys, but it came down to that position eligibility. And I didn't love the point guard spot. I didn't have enough to go up to Curry. So I was like, you know what? It's James Harden. We know that 60 to 70 is capable. He could do that. Look at the matchup, easily get it. And then, what did he put up? Like 44 or something like that, 45, whatever it was. Not enough. That's what it was. But that brings us home. That is all 5 games. We'll talk about our player tier segment now. I'll pass it over to you. You're expensive tier guy. Who are you looking at?
Yeah, and from the expensive tier perspective, honestly, with all of the potential question marks here, it's really it's Trae Young that seems to be the one that last man standing there for me. I like him at that 9,900 overall. As I said, the downside is the Utah defense. But if Donovan Mitchell's out, it's likely going to be a closer game, which means you're going to get more usage out of Trae. You're going to get him taking a lot more shots. And just from a volume perspective, he's likely going to be able to pay that off pretty well. His dimes are getting back. The rest of the offense is getting there. So for 9,900, he's my favorite play, expensive-wise.
I really hope you said Butler or Embiid just to make my life a little easier because I'm really torn on these two. I'm going to say Butler, though, just because of the eligibility at the position where we talked about so many centers. I just love him. I'm a big Jimmy Butler fan. There's no doubt about it. I think I like the price tag. I like the matchup, the way he's been playing, getting to the foul line, just, being more assertive. So I'll take Jimmy Butler at his price tag. In the mid-tier, I think I know who you're going to say, just to spite me a little bit, but I'll pass it over to you. Who are you looking at?
It's Kevin Porter Jr. at 6,400. He continues to be a guy that, one, I just like the upside of night in and night out. So I just find that I'm playing him so often, even when he was back in his 7,000s. But now he just seems a lot more engaged, even though his turnovers are so annoying. And he'll always get 5 to 6. In that mid 6,000s one, I can easily see him dropping a 40.
I thought you were going to go Horford for sure.
No, see, Horford seemed too easy, so I was going to leave that to you.
Yeah. No, so I kind of agree. And at 7,400, he's kind of almost out of that mid tier. So I'll go Mike Conley, 6,300. If there's no Mitchell, I'm not expecting 38 minutes or anything like that from Conley. I don't think the Jazz will do that with him, but there's a couple benefits. He's going to get extra shot attempts. He'll probably see 15 plus shot attempts. Going against Trae Young defense is always a plus. You can't go wrong with that either. So I'll go with Conley here. And then the value. Where do you go? So much of it. I'll let you take it.
Yeah, and it ends up being in that Philly and Detroit game. So honestly, it's between Tybull and Cade, both of them sitting at that 3,600, 4,000, that little range over there. I'll probably lean towards Tybull altogether, just because he said that steals upside alongside the fact that he's getting more shot attempts, more comfortable within the offense itself, and they'll likely be using him that little bit more with Tobias Harris continuing to be out. Tybull at 3,600 is my favorite.
Well, there we go. I mean, we could probably give 2 each on this if we really wanted to, and those were 2 of the better ones I like. The obvious is Whiteside, I think, 4,100, and then I guess a little bit of the less obvious would probably be Frank Kaminsky if we happen to see that there is no DeAndre Ayton. Keep that in the bottom of your lineup, though, so you could do that pivot and you can make that swap if you'd like. So there it is. That's all we got for you guys. So fun show, man. Always love having you on. Love doing these podcasts with you. Full of information, full of good plays. I like that we're never on the same page. We are a lot of the times, but you're not afraid to go against the grain, which is great. You know, we've had some people on our show as guests and stuff in the past where it's easy to agree with somebody, but listen, if one of us was always right, we'd be millionaires. You know, we can't always be right, and having somebody kind of open up your eyes and point you in a different direction you might not have originally been looking, that could be very helpful. And I think it's great for our listeners to kind of see that and hear that as well. Now I feel like I have to play a little bit more Josh Giddey than I anticipated. So that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But if you guys would like, follow us on Twitter at Mike Apotria, MikeApotria. Harris, tell people.
As always, you can follow me at HAK_Devil, DEVIL. And hit me up on Twitter and let me know what you guys think of my picks. It's always great to get some feedback on there. Positive, negative. Give me what you got.
Yeah, and there's only one way you get to get a lot of these picks. I mean, you can listen to the podcast and hear what we think the night before. But if you don't have the Hoopball DFS pass, you're not going to get the whole breakdown of the picks, which is what we produce in our Discord. We post them in the Discord. We post them on the website. That usually has a little bit more in-depth of a look because we'll start the article maybe tonight, but we finish it up usually midway through the day, so it'll be a little bit more updated as well. So, guys, it's $4.99 a month. Jump in there, get that DFS pass, check it out. You guys will be happy. The product's great. The Discord's fun. We get to answer some questions for you guys leading up to slate. We'll touch on live breaking news as soon as the guy gets ruled out, who we're looking at, why we like him, usages, you name it. We talk about it. Good time. And then give us a thumbs up, 5-star, rate, review, all of that good stuff wherever you listen, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio. It doesn't matter. We'll take the love anywhere you want to give it. So thank you guys for listening. We'll be back tomorrow. It'll be Santino out here crushing it with Dave. They'll be handling the business. Let's go take down some contests, some GPPs, maybe some cash games. Let's win it all. Later, guys.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.